Have you ever wondered why Russia's most advanced tank keeps breaking down at parades and has never seen combat? Or how a tank supposedly entering production in 2015 still barely exists 9 years later? Well, strap in, because the T-14 Armata is Russia's vaporware tank that exists more in propaganda than reality. Today, we're revealing 15 shocking facts about this supposed super tank that can't finish a parade, can't enter production, and can't actually fight. And number one will expose the ultimate embarrassment behind this failure. Hit that like button, subscribe for more, and let's expose Russia's phantom tank. 15. Unmanned turret revolutionary. The T-14 Armata features an unmanned turret with the entire crew seated in an armored capsule in the hull. This revolutionary design protects the crew from turret penetration, the most common way tanks are destroyed. The crew of 3 operates entirely from inside the protected capsule, controlling the gun remotely through cameras and sensors. This configuration represents a genuine innovation in tank design that Western tanks don't employ. The unmanned turret allows the use of an autoloader without crew vulnerability. In theory, this design dramatically improves crew survivability compared to traditional tanks where crew members sit in or near the turret. The concept is brilliant on paper, eliminating the crew's exposure to the most vulnerable part of the tank. If it actually worked and was produced in quantity, it would be revolutionary. 14. Red Square. Break down the T-14 Armata infamously broke down during its debut at the 2015 Victory Day Parade in Red Square. On live television, in front of Putin and the world, the tank stopped working during rehearsals and had to be towed away. The embarrassment was captured on video and went viral globally. Russia claimed it was just a parking brake issue, but the optics were catastrophic. Your most advanced tank breaking down at a parade in peacetime raises serious questions about reliability. If it can't complete a slow parade lap, how will it survive actual combat conditions? The breakdown became a metaphor for the entire Armata program. Impressive on paper, dysfunctional in reality. International defense analysts mocked Russia mercilessly. The Red Square failure foreshadowed all the problems that would plague the T-14 for the next decade and beyond. 13. Production hell. Russia announced the T-14 would enter mass production in 2015. 9 years later, production numbers remain microscopic. Initial plans called for 2,300 Armatas by 2020. Reality delivered maybe 20 total vehicles, mostly prototypes and test units. Production keeps getting delayed, scaled back, postponed, and revised downward. Russia blames sanctions, budget constraints, and technical challenges. The truth is, they cannot manufacture the tank in meaningful numbers. The Armata is too complex and expensive for Russia's struggling industrial base. Modern electronics, sensors, and systems require components Russia cannot produce domestically or import under sanctions. Each delay announcement lowers the planned production number. The tank exists mostly in propaganda videos rather than actual service. Production hell has turned the Armata into vaporware, a tank that was supposed to revolutionize Russian armor. 12. Price tag disaster. Each T-14 Armata costs an estimated $4 to $8 million, making it phenomenally expensive by Russian standards. Compare this to the T-90M at roughly $2 million or older, T-72s at under $1 million. Russia cannot afford to build Armatas in quantity at these prices. The budget simply doesn't exist, especially after economic sanctions devastated Russian finances. Building 2,300 Armatas would cost $9 to $18 billion minimum, money Russia doesn't have while fighting in Ukraine. The expensive price reflects the advanced technology, but it also makes the tank economically unfeasible for mass deployment. Russia chose to upgrade thousands of existing T-72s and T-90s instead because it's far cheaper. The Armata's cost-to-benefit ratio doesn't work for a country with Russia's economic constraints. Western tanks cost more, but Western economies can afford them. Russia can afford its own super tank, despite lower absolute costs. 11. Afghanet radar system. The T-14 supposedly features the Afghanet active protection system that can shoot down incoming anti-tank missiles. This revolutionary system uses radar to detect threats and launches projectiles to intercept them mid-flight. If it works, it would make the tank nearly immune to missiles and rockets. The system is designed to defeat tandem warheads, top attack missiles, and kinetic penetrators. Afghanet represents cutting-edge defensive technology theoretically superior to Western systems. But there's zero combat proof it actually works as advertised. Russia hasn't demonstrated it defeating real threats in controlled tests. The system might be vaporware like the tank itself, impressive in specifications but unproven in reality. Western analysts are skeptical given Russia's tendency to exaggerate capabilities. Until Afghanistan defeats actual weapons in verified tests, it remains theoretical technology. 10. Crew isolation problem. The crew capsule design creates serious situational awareness problems. Sitting isolated in the hole, the crew relies entirely on cameras and sensors for external visibility. If those systems fail or are damaged, the crew is effectively blind. There are no backup vision blocks or periscopes like traditional tanks have. Electronic warfare or battle damage could leave the crew unable to see anything outside. This total dependence on functioning electronics is a critical vulnerability. Traditional tank crews can see outside directly, even if all electronics fail. The T-14 crew cannot. They're sealed in an armored box, trusting cameras and computers completely. In the chaos of combat with systems failing, smoke, and confusion, this isolation could be fatal. The revolutionary crew protection comes at the cost of situational awareness and battlefield connection. Western tankers prefer direct vision, despite the vulnerability, because seeing the battlefield matters enormously. 9. Never seen combat. The T-14 Armata has never fired a shot in combat, despite Russia fighting a major war in Ukraine since 2022. Russia has deployed T-55s from the 1950s, T-62s from the 1960s, and everything in between to Ukraine, but not the Armata. The supposed super tank sits in Russia while ancient relics fight and die. This absence speaks volumes about the tank's readiness and reliability. Russia doesn't trust it enough to deploy in actual warfare. If the Armata was functional and effective, it would be in Ukraine demonstrating Russian superiority. Instead, it remains in propaganda videos while inferior tanks face Ukrainian weapons. The lack of combat deployment proves the Armata exists primarily for parades and promotional material, not actual fighting. Every day the war continues without Armata deployment is another proof of the program's failure to deliver operational capability. 8. Export failure total. Despite aggressive marketing, exactly 0 countries have purchased the T-14 Armata. Not even Russia's closest allies like Belarus or traditional customers like India showed interest. Algeria, which buys Russian weapons extensively, passed on the Armata. The complete export failure reflects international skepticism about the tank's capabilities and Russia's ability to deliver. Countries won't risk billions on a tank that barely exists and has never proven itself. Russia claimed export orders were imminent for years, but no contracts materialized. The lack of foreign customers also means Russia must bear all development and production costs alone, without export revenue to subsidize the program. This financial burden makes the already expensive Armata even less sustainable, creating a vicious cycle where lack of orders prevents economies of scale. 7. Upgraded T-90M. Instead, Russia chose to invest heavily in upgrading existing T-90 tanks to T-90M standard, rather than building new Armatas. This decision speaks volumes about priorities and practicality. The T-90M ProRive costs half as much as an Armata, can be produced in quantity, and uses proven technology. Russia is building hundreds of T-90Ms while Armatas remain in single digits. The military chose a quantity of adequate tanks over tiny numbers of theoretical supertanks. This pragmatic decision shows Russian generals don't believe the Armata is worth the cost and risk. They'd rather have proven weapons in volume than revolutionary weapons that don't exist. The T-90M may be less advanced, but it actually works, can be produced, and fights in Ukraine successfully. The Armata's failure forced Russia to invest in upgrading older designs because the future tank has no future. 6. Autoloader advantage. The T-14's autoloader allows a 3-person crew instead of 4, reducing vehicle size and weight. The unmanned turret autoloader can maintain high rates of fire without crew fatigue. This technology isn't new. Soviet tanks have used autoloaders since the T-64 in the 1960s. But the Armata's autoloader is supposedly more reliable and faster than previous versions. It can handle multiple ammunition types and theoretically doesn't suffer from the catastrophic ammunition detonation problem of earlier Soviet designs where the autoloader carousel caused devastating explosions. The reduced crew size is both an advantage and limitation. Fewer crew means less maintenance capability and fewer eyes for security. Western tanks use 4-person crews deliberately despite autoloader technology being available. The Armata's autoloader advantage is marginal given total package failures. 5. Armata family concept. The Armata is actually a universal combat platform designed to spawn multiple vehicle types on one chassis. The T-15 infantry fighting vehicle, T-16 armored recovery vehicle, and self-propelled artillery all use the same Armata platform. This modularity should reduce costs and simplify logistics. Spare parts and training would apply across vehicle types. The concept is sound, similar to Western Bradley and Stryker families, but Russia cannot produce the base platform, making the entire family concept moot. You can't have a vehicle family when you can't build the vehicles. The ambitious plan to replace Russia's entire armored force with Armata-based vehicles has collapsed under production reality. Instead of thousands of unified platform vehicles, Russia has maybe 20 tanks and a few support vehicles. 4. Sanctions killed electronics. Western sanctions devastated the Armata program by cutting off access to critical electronic components. The tank requires advanced processors, sensors, thermal imaging, and fire control systems that Russia cannot manufacture domestically. These components were imported from Western countries or Asian suppliers who now refuse sales due to sanctions. Russia tried to develop indigenous alternatives but lacks the technological base. The electronics gap forced design compromises and delays. Substitute components are inferior, heavier, less reliable, and more expensive. The Armada's advanced capabilities depend entirely on Western technology Russia can no longer access. This dependency reveals Russia's weakness in high-tech manufacturing. They can design impressive systems but cannot produce the components to build them. Sanctions exposed how much Russian military industry relied on Western supply chains. The Armata became a symbol of Russia's technological dependence and isolation. 3. Propaganda over reality. The T-14 Armata exists primarily as a propaganda tool rather than a functional weapon system. Russia uses it for parades, demonstrations, and promotional videos to project military strength. The actual combat capability is secondary to the perception of capability. International audiences see videos of the Armata and assume Russia has revolutionary tank technology. The reality is dramatically different from the propaganda. Russia mastered the art of making small numbers look impressive through careful staging and media control. The few existing armadas are paraded repeatedly, creating the illusion of larger numbers. This propaganda success is arguably the tank's only real achievement. It convinced many observers that Russia had cutting-edge armor, delaying recognition of Russian military weakness. 2. T-72. Still dominant, Russia continues to rely on upgraded T-72 tanks as the backbone of its armored forces, despite having supposedly superior options. Thousands of T-72B3 and T-72B3M tanks serve in Ukraine while armadas sit idle. The T-72, designed in the 1960s and entering service in the 1970s, remains Russia's most important tank in 2024. This dependence on 50-year-old designs shows how completely the Armata program failed. Russia cannot field its modern tank, so ancient vehicles fight instead. The T-72 continues receiving upgrades because it's the only tank Russia can actually produce in quantity. Modern electronics and weapons are bolted onto 1970s chassis because new chassis don't exist. The T-72's continued dominance is both practical necessity and admission of failure. 1. Total program failure. Here's the ultimate damning truth. The T-14 Armata program is a complete, comprehensive failure on every measurable level. Production failed, entering service failed, combat deployment failed, exports failed, and cost control failed, catastrophically. Russia announced revolutionary technology in 2015 and delivered essentially nothing 9 years later. The tank exists in tiny numbers, has never fought, costs too much, and cannot be manufactured at scale. Every promise was broken, every deadline missed, every production target slashed. The Armata represents everything wrong with Russian military procurement: corruption, incompetence, technological dependence, and prioritizing propaganda over capability. It's a symbol of Russian decline disguised as Russian strength. The world's supposed super tank is actually a national embarrassment that Russia cannot build, cannot deploy, and cannot afford. And there you have it. 15 facts proving the T-14 Armata is Russia's phantom tank that exists more in propaganda than reality. Which fact shocked you most? The parade breakdown or zero combat deployment? Drop your thoughts below, hit like, subscribe for more armor truth, and we'll see you on the battlefield.